Welcome back, everybody, to Strange Planet Podcast. And this week does mark a milestone for Strange Planet Podcast, as it is the first year. This is the 1-year anniversary of Strange Planet Podcast. And we would like to thank all the followers and viewers of Strange Planet Podcast. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. And so, for this week, we're going to be talking about the current standings of the NFL. And a little later in this episode, we will be talking a bit about the NBA as well. And I will say, just starting off, nothing makes me happier as a Giants fan that last weekend, the Eagles and the Cowboys both got eliminated in the same weekend. Now, if that doesn't put a smile on a Giants fan's face, I don't know what will.
I would say an O-line would put a smile on a Giants fan's face, but
that too, yeah.
we'll settle for the Eagles and Cowboys losing.
You know, but that's the only problem with the Giants, man. That's that O-line. If they could just strengthen that O-line, I bet you it would make a huge difference. It really would.
Oh, yeah. It would allow whatever quarterback is behind the center to actually have time to make decisions and, get the ball out instead of, we actually have the record for the second highest of all time allowed sacks in this season.
Wow.
Only one team in the history of the NFL had more sacks in a season.
Ouch.
So, it didn't matter if it was Daniel Jones or Tommy DeVito or
even going as far back to Manning, because he had the same problem then too.
Yeah, toward the end of Manning's career, he definitely took a beating, and that's actually what prompted them to put in Jones kind of early. And then they saw enough of that, and they put Eli back in to finish his career.
Basically. And then you fast forward to today, and now they got that DeVito, and that was like, I'm not going to say a replacement for Jones, but surprisingly, I'm not going to lie, he didn't do really half that bad in the few games he did play. I was actually pretty impressed.
He started off slow. So after Jones went down, they put in Tyrod Taylor,
right?
Who's a veteran backup, and he did fairly well. He actually did a lot better than Jones in terms of, quarterback rating. Yeah,
right.
And then he got injured, and so they put in the third string quarterback, and Tommy DeVito. No one knew anything about him. He was undrafted, and the first game they wouldn't even let him throw the ball. They maybe let him throw it twice, and it didn't look too good. But I guess when you're adjusting to the NFL from playing college football, you got to adjust to the pace and sort of the speed of the game.
Right.
And, actually get coordinated with your receivers and your O-line, even though the Giants barely have one. So he definitely settled down after a couple of games, and he started making smarter decisions in terms of, because, when Tommy DeVito first went in, I just noticed he always tucked and ran, which is better than what Jones did, because Jones just stood there and got fucked up. But
pretty much.
DeVito kind of, he did it a little bit too late, but still not as late as Jones. Jones just stood there. At least DeVito tried to run, but I noticed he was really quick to do that instead of trying to do a short pass or a toss or something like that. If the play was drawn up for that. But, there's always going to be, or usually there's going to be a receiver open from short distance, or hopefully you would hope. But DeVito seemed to just default to tucking and running it himself. But over the course of a few games, you saw him progress, and he did that a lot less. He actually started completing some passes, and now we're gonna have a little competition next season. During preseason for who's going to be our starting quarterback.
Exactly.
Will it be Daniel Jones, who gets paid $40 million a year, but really hasn't demonstrated all that much? I mean, he got us to the playoffs last season by the skin of our teeth, and
Yep.
we won a playoff game.
Well, we did. That's true.
Technically. And after that, he sort of regressed. And yeah, this season was not good. And
No. Yeah.
neither was last season. So, over the course of Daniel Jones's career, he hasn't shown all that much progression as a QB. And
Especially for that kind of paycheck.
you wonder where his ceiling is and why it justified that paycheck. Now, yes, he did get the Giants to the playoffs. And yes, he shows flashes of, I wouldn't say greatness, but he shows flashes of competency. Like
Right.
he can pass the ball, and he can be a productive quarterback. But those things are few and far in between. And people will go back and forth saying, "Oh, well, it's the O line. Oh, well, but at the end of the day, you saw that Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and Tommy DeVito both had a crack at QB throughout various points of the season. And let's just say Daniel Jones, out of those three people, was the worst quarterback on the field for the Giants.
It's kind of true. Yeah. No, you're not kidding.
And yeah, they had different players playing at different times, but at the end of the day, if you're being paid $40 million a year, I expect you to be better than your second and third string quarterbacks.
I mean, you would think, right? I really want to see, too, between the three of them, if the Giants have a decent O-line, say next year, I would love to see the improvement. Of course, it's going to make a big difference regardless, but I would love to know as to how far. Because like you were just saying, you might find that DeVito might actually be better than Jones overall with a strengthened O-line. You know what I mean?
We'll see. Like DeVito did show that he is able to adapt and learn fairly quickly.
I was just going to say quickly.
You see a huge difference between his first couple of games and his subsequent games. Now, he did have some tough, competition at the end, and he got benched, but he has shown the ability to adapt and to learn. Whereas Daniel Jones, he's had like 5 years now.
It's been a while.
He hasn't really shown much improvement, or he hasn't built the consistency that we would like to see from a starting quarterback for the Giants.
Right. And switching real quick, the one team this year that surprised the hell out of me is the Lions. I am flabbergasted as to how well they're doing, especially overall. I believe they're 12-5 right now, and they're playing the Bucks coming this weekend. And I'm not sure how that's going to go, but it would be interesting to see if the Lions end up winning that. I'm telling you, that would be big because like Detroit has not been, their past quite a few years have not been too pretty. But this year has been very interesting for them. They've been really kind of emerging from the underground here because they got I'm looking at the spread here, and my God, they got one of the best records aside from maybe Baltimore. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. Who do you think's going to win for that one? You think the Lions are going to take the Bucks?
It's tough. I mean, the Bucks are a good team, and even after losing Tom Brady, they're a pretty solid group.
Yeah, it's still there.
It's gonna be tough, but I think the Bucks will take it.
I think you're right. I'd like to see Detroit win it, to be honest, but I got a feeling you're right. I think the Bucks are going to win.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason that the Bucks wouldn't, but we'll see. Any given Sunday, anything could happen.
So. And it's the facts of it all in the end. And another really big game for Sunday too that I'm really interested to see is the Bills and the Chiefs game. That's going to be a good game.
That is going to be a bloodbath. And I think, Mahomes is a magician. He figures out how to get something done, even if he's not playing well or he's injured or whatever. Like he's had some bad games this season, but at the end of the day, like he's a professional, and he gets the job done somehow. I think we're probably going to see that again.
Oh yeah.
I don't see him shying away from the challenge. The Bills are a very good team, but I think the NFL has shown a spotlight not only on the Chiefs for winning a Super Bowl, but also because of Travis Kelce's romance with a particular singer. So I think, not saying the NFL is rigged or anything, but perhaps they'll encourage them to do well. To get them to the Super Bowl. Who knows? We might have a guest singer at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's possible, I suppose. That's for sure. One thing
or at
I'll
least
say,
someone in the stands they can keep turning to.
The one thing I'll say about the Chiefs, though, and especially Mahomes, like you were just saying, like he could have the worst first half, but then emerge from God knows where, and then the second half not only make up for the loss of the first half, but end up winning the game. And like, where do you don't see quarterbacks being able to pull that many numbers that quick? You know what I mean? It's almost like he studied the entire first half, saw what he did wrong, and then completely flipped the script in the second half, and usually ends up stealing the win right when you least expect it, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's why some people say that, he's on track to eclipse Tom Brady as the greatest of all time.
At that rate, he could.
He is developing at a fast rate. However, that's Tom Brady won a lot of Super Bowls.
Okay? Yeah, it's a high bar.
It's gonna be a while before Mahomes. Obviously he's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there's no denying that.
Hands down. I mean, he's done more in his career. Won 2 Super Bowls, and he's done more in his career than most quarterbacks, will do in their entire careers, or and even if they get reincarnated. Mahomes is definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer, but will he be the GOAT? That's definitely going to be a question we should look forward to having an answer in about 10, 15 years.
Right. Because he's got a long career ahead of him yet, too. So he's not going to be going anywhere for a while, So the fact that we're talking about
when
this
when the dust settles on his career, we can assess it. But right now, let's just enjoy watching him play, watching him make magic happen on the field, and leave that GOAT stuff to the future.
Right. Don't jump the gun
now.
Just
What
yet.
we can talk about in terms of GOATs is basketball.
Okay.
Now, we have definitely some controversy now that LeBron James has emerged as the top scorer in the NBA of all time. He eclipsed Wilt Chamberlain's record last season. So now you have to ask, is LeBron the GOAT? He continues to play at a very high level, even as he's getting up there in age in terms of NBA longevity. He's maintained his physique and his health, and
right.
He has a pretty good case for being the GOAT. He hasn't really slowed down. He's performing, at similar numbers that he has his entire career. Now, I hear your butt. What's your butt?
My only butt. Yeah, I think you probably do. And I'm not discrediting LeBron in any way. I mean, over the years, he's also been known for doing a lot of stupid shit. But, bring it to today, it seems like he got a hold of the reins and kind of stopped doing all the nonsense and the other idiocracies.
Hold on. I'll stop you right there. Any nonsense that LeBron did was more... It was basketball related. There's a lot of players who do some more off the court nonsense. Like
that's true. That's fair.
Like LeBron, for all we know, he's a great father and family man.
Right, and there is that too.
Great husband. He's always had like a very good image in terms of speaking out for people's rights, and
right.
He is a very good off the court image, and he does a lot off the court. Now, when it comes to, I think what you're referring to probably is the decision and the drama that sparked earlier on in his career, and just the sort of sense of entitlement that comes with the moniker the King. When he first came into the NBA, his nickname was the King.
Yeah, that's true. King James. Yep.
Yeah, based off of King James.
Mhm.
That's an apt name, I guess, but it also sort of presupposes like some sort of dominance or some sort of entitlement to take over the reins of the NBA. And it took him a while to get there. I mean, you had a dominant Kobe back then.
Right. Yep.
You had Shaq when he first came in the NBA. It took a few years LeBron started off pretty dominant, but and he elevated himself to the elites of the league. But you wouldn't say he was necessarily the best player until several years later.
Right. Yeah. The only thing I was going to say too was like, I noticed in recent years, it seems like it diminished a bit, but like in the beginning, the ego is what I was really kind of referring to a little bit. Now, I'm not just, like I said, I'm not discrediting him. I think he's a phenomenal player and his numbers only prove that. But like sometimes when he was interviewed and stuff, he was trying to make it sound like, oh, well, if it wasn't for me, none of this would have happened. I'm the greatest. And even though he is probably one of the higher point scorers and everything, like you still shouldn't say that because it's still a team-based thing. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like that was kind of like you're trying to take the whole credit. And even if it's true, I feel like it's still not something you really should say because it just discredits your team. You know what I mean? It doesn't make,
I don't know.
It just didn't sit right with me.
I would disagree. I wouldn't, I didn't see him as someone who discounted the efforts of other people on the team. Or so contrast him with like someone like Kobe, who, Kobe was someone who would trash talk a teammate
That's true.
or not pass them the ball because he wanted you to earn his respect.
Right.
That was the same way that Jordan was.
Jordan. Yep. He was the same way.
Jordan wanted you to earn his respect. He wanted you to put in at least half the effort that he put in.
Very competitive people, that's for sure.
Like Allen Iverson likes to tell the story about Kobe. So I think it was Iverson's first game in LA, and Kobe took him out to dinner. And after dinner, Kobe asked Iverson, "What are you going to be doing?" And Iverson said, "Yeah, I'm going to go hit up the club or whatever," because they had a game the next day against each other. And then Kobe, he's like, "Oh, what are you going to do, Kobe?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go to the gym and shoot."
And train.
Kobe, like, Iverson was my favorite player back in the day.
I remember that.
That work ethic of Kobe was unparalleled. Even Phil Jackson will say that he worked harder than Jordan to overcome some of his physical shortcomings. Like Jordan, could jump higher and had bigger hands. Like Jordan had, natural physical superiority over Kobe, but Kobe made up for it by his sheer work ethic. And so LeBron comes into the league, and I don't think he had the same, like, LeBron actually, compared to Jordan and Kobe, was actually, I think, more congenial with his teammates. He didn't, of course, any great player will get upset, if their teammates don't perform up to par. But I think that LeBron actually was more accepting of teammates who, weren't as talented as him. And I don't think he put the same type of pressure on them that Jordan and Kobe did.
That's the one thing I will say about LeBron. And that's like, we're comparing him to Jordan and Kobe. And I kind of feel like that already says enough about LeBron. You know what I mean? Comparing him to the GOATs. But like, I don't know if he's there yet, but he's definitely on track to be.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have much left in his career.
Right.
He's
He's on his way
going
out.
on, he's like
Yeah.
39 almost. He's not going to pass Jordan in championships probably.
No, that's a high bar there too. You know what I mean? We're talking almost like Brady to
Jordan,
football, like
yeah, I mean Jordan didn't have the most championships, but he dominated, a decade
overall.
basically.
Yeah,
He won 6 championships and 2 three-peats. And the only reason he didn't win in between those three-peats was because he retired and played baseball and then came back and won 3 more.
Right, as a wizard.
No,
it wasn't a wizard. It was a bull.
He was a wizard at the end of his career. He retired again after his second three-peat and then came back and joined the Wizards, which he owned. So he didn't win the most championships. Bill Russell, the Celtics, has a ridiculous. I think he had like 11 rings.
Oh,
talk about Lord of the Rings,
yeah.
Holy. No, because the Russell's Celtics always face the Wilt's Lakers and Kareem's Lakers, and the Celtics got the good end of that stick.
The one thing I will say about Jordan, as great as he was too, was he's one of the few players too that's like all around an incredible player. Because, he'll put up the points and he's going to, do everything he can, but he can set people up. He's offensively incredible. He's defensively incredible. There wasn't one part of the game he was weak really at.
I would say the same of Kobe and the same of LeBron. Maybe to a lesser extent now that he's older, he's not as quick on defense. But that goes with any player. That was the same for Jordan. Like people like to talk about Jordan as if he never came back again and was on the Wizards, and we saw that he was in fact mortal. He was still very, very good.
Right.
He wasn't. He wasn't a god.
You realize he was human then,
like he was just a very good basketball player then.
And generally at that point too, I was probably a Knicks fan, but I was a Jordan fan too. So I was always watching the Bulls too. You know what I mean? Some people used to say I was a hypocrite for it, but I was like, dude, I respect talent when I see it. And he slaughtered the Knicks in the 90s, but there was a reason for that. You know what I mean? It was him. It really was. I mean, there's no really other way to put it. He was just an incredible player.
He had a stacked team too. I mean,
that's true. He had Kukoc and Pippen and Rodman, and there was they had a lineup. That's for sure.
Don't forget Steve Kerr.
And yes, Kerr too, right? Yeah, they had a great team. That's also very true.
Yeah, I mean, Kerr is very lucky. So after he left the Bulls, guess where he went next? The Spurs.
Really?
And he won a championship with them as well. And now he's the coach of Golden State, and they win championships.
Right.
So Kerr goes where the wins are, and
what's your outlook?
Definitely a big part of that. For
this season, how do you think? Of course, it's early, but how do you feel about it?
I'm a Knicks fan. I like where my Knicks are going. They're definitely, since they made the trade with Toronto, I like their additions. It's sad to see Emmanuel Quickly go. He was one of my favorite players on the Knicks. He had good energy, but RJ Barrett, I think, needed to go home to Toronto. He's a nice guy, but he did not perform consistently enough under the New York spotlight. As far as this season goes, I mean, I think Jokic is the one to beat. I don't see any team really being able to dismantle the Nuggets over a 7-game series. Sure, Philadelphia will definitely contest them. They won fairly recently, I believe. But, in a 7-game series, Jokic is a triple-double machine, and he has his whole team. He's just a facilitator and a scorer. It's incredible to watch. And it's crazy because like, you know, a few years back, I didn't really watch the Nuggets. I was like, oh, who's this guy Jokic? Yeah, he can't be that good. I watched a couple of clips and I'm like, oh, he looks boring. But like
Surprise, surprise.
if you stay and watch like an entire game, like he will rack up, a whole bunch of stats just playing the game and playing it well. He reminds me of Tim Duncan in that regard, who wasn't he also wasn't the flashiest player, but he had the fundamentals down so well that and he just executes, so consistently and gets his team involved. I think Jokic is like sort of an evolution of Duncan in that he's also, sort of like a point guard in terms of running the offense through him and opening up opportunities for other players to score. And he can knock down threes. Like, I mean, the guy is just unstoppable. And until the league finds a solution for him, he's going to be the biggest problem. And I see them winning another championship.
Holy. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. This guy, yeah, for real.
I mean, I can only like relive what it was like being a Knicks fan back in the Michael Jordan era, giving credence to, Michael Jordan in my eyes being, the greatest player of all time.
I agree.
It wasn't just his ability to score. It was his ability to dominate on command. And it didn't take much to rile Jordan up. If you were an opponent of playing against him and you started jawing at him, he lit you up pretty quickly. Let you know, like, yeah, no. I mean, I hated him because growing up, I was one of the only Knick fans in the family, and my uncle, he was like 7, 8 years older than me, so he could have been like an older brother. So he had all his friends over, and they all be partying and stuff. And he'd have one friend who was a Knick fan, and everyone else was Bull fans. Even my younger cousin, who was like, my kind of like buddy all the time. And it sucked because, you had to sit there and you root for your team. You want your team to win. So you go back and forth, and we just watched game after game of fucking Jordan just
taking over.
And this is not no scrub New York team. This is, the 1990 something New York Knicks where, you got Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, fucking
John
Charles
Starks.
Oakley.
Well,
right.
Yep.
John Starks.
I wouldn't say Karl Malone.
No, not Karl Malone. Anthony Mason, I meant.
Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley.
Yeah, man, you had a
good
nice
team.
Yeah. You had a good team.
They did.
I feel confident with my team, and like John Starks, he was like a hit or miss. He lacked the confidence, I think, that like a Reggie Miller would have had. Otherwise, he would have been like lights out. Because when he was on, he was on.
But when he's off, he was off.
Yeah, he's
I know what
definitely
you mean.
definitely a streaky shooter.
Yeah, he was a streaky shooter. That's it. For me, it was a confidence issue because you could get him out of that streak if you just kind of, poked at him in a certain way, like you pressed a button. if you struck a nerve with him, it would freak him out.
Like he's an android.
Well, I mean, basketball is not all about physicality. There's mentality to it as well. It's in a way of like chess. There's strategic, ways about it mentally, and then there's the actual ego, as Freud would talk about, like your own self. Like, why do you think Kobe Bryant talks so much shit?
Because he can.
Because that helped motivate him to actually deliver on that.
Yeah.
It's not just because he could do it. It's because he said it. Now he has to do it.
He challenges himself, and it also like intimidates the other player. So
exactly. Yeah, it's like
and that's why when you talk about GOATs, you talk about dominating players. Like Jordan was fierce because he could kind of lead the team in a way, and at your back end, he could have just like all right, everyone kind of make room coming through. You could say this kind of same thing with like Kobe. Kobe was a good, driver. He could get in there and score if he had to. I mean, I don't know if he was a fan of Jordan or if he, actually, you know what? I think I remember a story.
Oh, he's absolutely a fan of Jordan.
where
That's
he
why.
wore Jordans. I think the first game he played against them, and then Jordan scored at him and was like, "Don't wear those anymore."
Damn. Nah, Kobe respected Jordan and
Mm.
emulated his game off of him. A lot of his game. A lot of people say Kobe stole Jordan's moves, and Kobe was like, "Yeah, I borrowed moves from Jordan. I borrowed moves from a bunch of people.
Yeah,
I
whatever works.
studied the game. Kobe was a studier. He studied the game and took what he liked and made it his own."
Basically,
Jordan was
recrafted it like, yeah.
Jordan grinded every day growing up. That's how Jordan got to be how good he was. He grinded every day and like drilled himself and everything, and obviously played in college and whatever. But
Yeah,
Gary,
I mean, same with Kobe.
Well, it's a different approach though. While Kobe was, went at it at the gym, he studied the game from another level. Because if you think about it from Michael Jordan's time, there wasn't much for him to draw from other than like Wilt Chamberlain. But Wilt Chamberlain was a big scorer because he was tall. And
Sure,
he
there
was.
was. Yeah, I mean, there was Magic. There was.
Yeah,
Bird.
I mean, there was Magic and Larry Bird. Those are the ones that he ended up, coming in after. And,
There was Dr. J. Jordan definitely borrowed some game from people.
Yeah,
that's what the greats do. They study who came before them, and they borrow things they like and then make it their own.
Basically, restructure it as theirs. And you can't blame him from doing so. You know what I mean? Like, it's a genius idea.
Here's the other angle of the GOAT and why I think Jordan is the GOAT. Who he came up playing against coming up the first time from college. He was coming in against Larry Bird, Dr. J, fucking Magic Johnson was already in the game, Clyde Drexler, and fucking all those other
Isaiah
teams.
Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas, exactly. These people were already established. He had to come in and, face against them. And I think that made him a better player as well.
Yeah, no, he definitely came in. He came up in an era that was, dominated by Magic and Bird, and he evolved and grew up alongside, some very fierce competition. I mean, you had Reggie Miller, who could drain a three from anywhere on the court. He was the Stephen Curry before there was Stephen Curry.
I was just going to say that. I was literally took the words out of my mouth.
Plus, he had that attitude, like that killer instinct attitude that Jordan had.
Yeah, but he crumbled in front of Jordan.
Oh, sure. I mean, who didn't?
For real.
For Reggie Miller, as good as he was, because he was good, and I hated him for that, because he would always come to New York. He'd always be a fucking Spike Lee's face and everything, and that kind of irked me a bit. But, it's sports, and that's kind of goes with the game a little bit. But, like, even him, as good as he was, crumbled in front of Jordan. Like, he had his moments here and there, but, like, overall, like, he couldn't keep up. And that was in his prime.
And the irony is a handful of these people were a decent height. Like, there was a height advantage there. Like, Jordan, what was he, like 6'6", I think he is, or 6'7"?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, like, some of these guys were, I'm not going to say towering over him, but, they did have a height advantage, whereas Jordan
denied a lot of Hall of Famers their rings.
Yes, he did.
He said, "You don't eat while I'm on the court."
He's just an infinite appetite, that guy. I tell you, that's what made him the greatest ever. It really is.
What truly made me lose interest in the Knicks is that hook shot from Ewing in the Rockets game.
Yeah,
it was like the last second, and it was right there, and it just. And after that, I was like, I'm never gonna win. I'm never gonna win with this team.
They had another shot in ~99, but Ewing went down before they still made it to the finals without him. But, that was actually, I think, Tim Duncan's rookie year. And he also played with other Hall of Famer David Robinson, who was the center. So, they used to call them the Twin Towers. They were both over 7 feet tall. Jesus. And we had, skinny ass Marcus Camby. So... So yeah, we weren't winning that series.
No,
unfortunately.
It was a young Tim Duncan, but he was effective.
It's hard being a New York fan in any sport. I mean, at least with the Yankees, we can reasonably expect at least getting to the playoffs and watching something.
Well,
But like,
not last year.
Yeah, last year was, we're going to talk about that in another episode, but I have higher hopes for this year. But yeah,
who knows? Maybe I'll be interested this year.
Yeah, we'll save that for another episode.
They missed the postseason for the first time in how many years? So
over 30.
Yeah, so your hopes couldn't be lower.
Right?
I miss Steinbrenner bad.
There's a lot of factors that go into that second half because their first half was actually really good. But then between injuries and I don't know what happened after the All-Star break, but yeah, that plane came down and it came down quick. And it was tough to watch, but I hate to say it, a lot of it was not only due to just the pitching, but it was also due to just like them not putting numbers up, which was just awkward. Usually it's not their thing, you know what I mean? But it was strange to see because it's almost like it felt like a different season. It was just weird because like the way they played in the spring opposed to the way they played in the fall was like two entirely different styles, not for the better, you know? So let's hope some of these trades they just got Stroman for 2 years. And now we're going to see what happens. And we'll be probably further talking about that in the upcoming weeks. And that's all for this week. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Strange Planet will have new episodes on YouTube every Friday. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.